We're here. Welcome, everybody. So great to have you here today. Now, today I'm super excited. We have something special planned. And what's so cool about this is we didn't plan to have this plan. That's the best part of it all. Got chatting this morning. What was really great, Mick messaged me really super early. He's like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? I'm like, man, I don't know. What kind of massive value can we provide? Mick shares, hey, let's talk a little bit about overwhelm. Let's talk a little bit about burnout. And I got thinking, and then Sarah messaged us and said, hey, you know what? Burnout's my thing. So it all came together. We've got Sarah Ross on the show today. She's going to provide us just an absolute ton of information. She's going to give us some tips, some tricks, give us a little insight of what she does and how she really helps people, you know, not just recover from it, because recover is one thing, but isn't it better if we can avoid it or at least extremely minimize it altogether? She's going to share some really great tips, some really great information on that. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, give us an introduction. Tell us a little bit more. I want to hear about burnout. And most importantly, how did you recognize, and this might be something really key to hear, how did you recognize that there was a need, that there was a necessity for that?
Okay, so I am the mental health maximizer. I basically help people, as you've mentioned there, recover from burnout, from stress, from overwhelm, and then build a life around, I call it your reason to breathe. That purpose, that why, you know, that thing that means that every decision is going in the same direction, it's aligned. The problem with burnout and stress and all these things is that's exactly what it starts attacking first. It starts taking you away from the things you love. You start shutting those down. Work becomes the one place that is safe. And that's what our body has for thousands of years always wanted for us. Our brain wants us to be safe or getting to be safe. You know, so let's go back to we were cavemen. There's a tiger coming. It's like fight or flight, run. Am I safe? No, tiger's still coming. Will I be safe? Yes, because I'll get into the cave or up the tree or all these things. That's when the body's natural reactions, stress reactions come out. We unfortunately now use those all day. You know, a reaction that, you know, hormonally for our body should last no more than 5 minutes. We are now doing 24 hours a day on because we just don't stop. And you said to me there, how did I even figure out what that issue was? Well, mine got so bad that I picked the day on which I would end my life. Wow. Now, only once it had healed and I started looking into it more did I realize just how many red flags there had been in the 3-4 year period leading up to that decision. But I couldn't see any of them because it was just like, keep pushing. Like, otherwise I'm a failure. Otherwise I'm not good enough. Otherwise, you know, oh, I don't want people to know. I don't want people to see me as a failure. So I'm hiding everything. And that's where we get to now, in that a lot of my issues started because I isolated myself from society. So things start to go wrong and I pull back from my friends, my family. And what has COVID done to the world? It's done exactly that. It's taken away all those support mechanisms that previously would have helped us get by a little bit longer with the stress or the overwhelm. And now it's kind of, well, actually, you're on your own. You're in your house. It's just you and your family, 24/7, 365. And those questions again, am I safe or can I get safe?
Now, I can't help but notice, Brother Mick, I want to come to you for a second here. Looks like you're doing a little avoidance of burnout. When I look at the background, I'm seeing palm trees. I'm seeing just beautifulness going in the background right there. And at the same time, here's what's really great, is this was something that came to Mick that said, you know what, we've got to discuss this today, right? Everything came together and stuff. Mick, tell us, you know, what was the thought process? What brought it together for you to say, you know what, we've really got to discuss this? Was there something that's happened? Was there something that's kind of gone on that said, you know what, we've got to tap into this. We've got to get some of this exposure out to the viewers.
Yeah, well, for me, firstly, welcome, Sarah. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with us. But for me, I've noticed it a few times over the last month or two. People just so we were lucky in Mount Isa. We recovered fairly quickly from the COVID isolation stuff, and it's been really, really busy. Things, work got put on hold, but it still needed to be done once it all got fixed. So a lot of it's been quite busy, and a lot of people have just haven't been able to go on holidays, haven't been able to get away, and the term I'm just over it. I've just had enough. I just need to get away. I need to do something. I need a break, because quite often people recharge. You go away and you recharge, and you can go again. You put, fill your own cup for a few weeks, and then you're good to go again. But we haven't been able to do that because we haven't been able to holiday, haven't been able to travel around like we normally would. And I've had those conversations, and I had a guy specifically come and see me on Thursday, and was just like, you know what, wanted to have a chat to me because he's just over it. Had enough, burnout. 5 years working 60 hours a week plus, and he's just had enough. And I said, well, it's just come up. I said, look, happy, and we had a big chat, and that was all good, and helped me out with a few things. And I thought to myself, this is a topic that's come up multiple times over the last month for me. This is something I think that a lot of people are experiencing, and especially now people go, well, I won't take holidays just yet. It's nearly Christmas. I'll take some time at Christmas. It's a busy time of year as well, so it's something that we really need to focus on. So we share some tips and tricks and things that people can do to reduce that overwhelmed feeling, to break the pattern, break the cycle. And you said something really interesting before, that it's a lot of fear-based behavior. I'm not good enough. Am I going to get hurt? Am I going to is one of the big triggers, and it was for you, which thank you for sharing that as well. But it's at that fear-based, am I going to do this, and that constant striving, that having that reptilian brain engaged, the primeval 2,000-year-old protect me brain engaged, which creates a lot of the chemical reactions in your body, which causes this feeling. So I'm interested to hear what you think. What's 2 or 3 things somebody can do to break the pattern? And it's, I feel like crap now. I feel overwhelmed now. I feel burnout right now. What's 2 or 3 things that our listeners could do to just break that pattern and move in a positive direction?
Yeah. So it was interesting. You just mentioned there, those feelings that I had internally, but we here in the UK are not out of the woods yet. We every couple of days we'll have another announcement. Are we going back into lockdown and these things? Or are we supposed to go back to the office and just start that work cycle again? And so on top of those fears, that I mentioned, there's also people are having to deal with fears about themselves and where they work and their families that they've never had to consider before. Parents have never had to worry about their kids being safe at school, in the sense of, if I send them to school, will they get sick? You just go, well, they might get a sniffle or something, but this is, do they then pick up COVID if they go to school? And the same for people going back to work. That's that fear of, is my workplace safe? Would I rather stay at home because that's where I feel that I can work better, or, take some of these lessons from? And all these things, like you mentioned, those chemical reactions, they are impacting us at a very base level. And so you go back to that hierarchy of needs. What people need is to reduce the fear. So whichever questions are coming up for them, but then we need to go back to the real basics. Are people sleeping enough? Getting enough water? Are they moving around? And it's not just, we talked about it before we came on air, people working 50, 60-hour weeks or all day on Zoom. Even in an office, you would have gone for your lunch or gone and got a coffee. And people at their home office, at their desk, just don't even move that far. So that getting fresh air, taking yourself away from a screen, and then actually setting a boundary of what are my working hours. Now, you might get more flexibility by working from home, so you can take the kids to school, do the groceries, because you can work a bit later, or you don't have that commute that takes 2 hours in the morning. And suddenly it's like, well, I could work, which means I get 2 extra hours. But what are you doing for you every single day? What makes you smile? What makes you happy that you have stopped doing? Or maybe for some people, what have you found during this time that you previously weren't doing? You really enjoyed during lockdown or quarantine. Have you already stopped doing it because life is going back to normal? Or are you still including it? So for me, when I was going through my whole recovery I was a bookworm as a kid. There were books everywhere. And I didn't read a book for about 3 years. Not even the ones I would go, you know what, I'm going to read that on my next vacation. My Kindle is testament to the fact that even 4 years later, I still haven't caught up with all the books that I was going to read on my vacation, because they're still, they're still downloaded and just waiting for me to have, I don't know, 400 days off where I could actually read those books. But it's those things that give you a break but make you happy, that put a smile on your face, because those moments where we can do that actually break the stress cycle. They stop the chemical reaction of stress, which gives our bodies a chance to stop, reset, and heal if we can keep it going for long enough.
You said something there that I think is critically important, and is that taking that break or doing something for you each day, whether it's your lunch break. I discovered about 7 or 8, maybe 9, 8 years ago or something like that. I was doing some kind of business development stuff, and they were talking about where you get your energy from. What is it that recharges you, and what are the things that drain you? And I discovered that my lunch break recharges me, because, again, in Mount Isa, I'm lucky enough that I live about 3 minutes from work. Even from one side of town to the other is about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So I go home for lunch every day. So I leave the office, I go home, I sit in my house, I have lunch. Sometimes it's with my wife, sometimes it's she's not there, she's at work, but I just sit there and have lunch and that's my me time. And I find that I have a way more productive afternoon on the days that I do that. I have a much better day and I have a more productive afternoon. In the days that I don't, because I got busy or sidetracked, that I found that I was far more exhausted at the end of the day because I didn't take that half an hour. And it's half an hour. It's not like I'm sitting at home for 2 hours. So it's that half an hour, it makes a huge difference for me. It's just taking that small thing to break the cycle, to break the pattern, to recharge that energy.
See, go ahead,
Our brain only takes sort of 30 seconds, a minute, to stop producing cortisol. And it's that break. So, 30 minutes, that's an amazing gift to your body, that it can, in those 30 minutes, slow down, and other parts of your body then get a chance to heal whilst you're having your lunch or interacting with your wife. Whereas, and that's the thing that we find with people that are chronically stressed. They just never stop that cycle. And so the body can't naturally heal if it doesn't have the building blocks to do it. And unfortunately, the building blocks to heal are exactly the same blocks as it needs to build stress, to build cortisol. And it's an either or, it's not and. So if it is making cortisol, it is not making dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, the endorphins, or any of these things. Like, it's literally like, which cake do you want to bake today? Stress cake or happy cake? That's it.
I love that analogy. And as we've all been sharing here, the thought that came to mind, the picture that I started to form in my mind, that I started to hallucinate, was a bucket. We've got a bucket and we have so much available. There's all these other things right now, especially with the world, in the circumstance that it is, we're doing things that we've never had to do before. We're doing things that we've never faced before. All those things, they're taking pieces out of our bucket. They're reducing it, and we're only left with a very little. I think there's two things that have to happen here, and I want to grab some tips and tricks off you on this. But number one, we have to first of all recognize that we're expending that extra energy, expending that extra effort into doing all those things. And if we don't take some sort of action to change it or mitigate it, find some sort of help with it, it's going to make a terrible impact. And we get to that place that we call burnout. How do I recognize that I may, because, hey, I'm a big, strong man. I don't get burned. I can work 12, 14 hours a day. It's a great story. It's a great story, but in reality, that's not the truth behind it. What are some things that I can really start to focus in on to help me understand, or even give me just a little bit of a clue to recognize, hey, there could be something here? Well, what should I look for?
$64,000 question, that one, because it is not the same for everybody. We actually have 15 factors that we work through with clients. We will ask them, are you burning out? And it's some yes, no questions. And some of them are like, do you wake up exhausted after 6-7 hours sleep? That's a sign that your body has still been processing all of the stress rather than the healing, the resting, the reset that you would normally get during proper sleep. Other things are like that niggle of pain or that cold that will just not go away. I mean, that's a difficult one during COVID. So, but for me, it was migraines. It started as one every couple of months, then it was one a month, then it was one a week. And then by the time I'd got to the worst point, it was 25 days a month. I had a migraine.
Wow.
And I was pushing through. I was sat at my desk, half blind because it affects my eyes, trying not to vomit over my computer, because it gives me nausea, but just trying to push through so nobody knew that I had a migraine again. My triggers for my migraine are not sleeping properly and not drinking enough water. So just like your car will show you that red light when it needs you to check the oil, or even worse, check the engine, or think about your mobile phone. If your mobile phone gets to 10-20% charge and you immediately go and run for a charger, and your phone would never ever give you that low battery signal, then you need to start treating yourself with the same respect as you give your phone.
That is a powerful analogy.
You will recharge your phone every single day, so you are not without. But at what point will you start to recharge yourself so that there is a you left to fight another day?
Wow. How impactful is that? Really seriously, just take that in a moment, because that's the truth. You spoke a universal truth worldwide. We will do everything that we can to plug these in, to make sure that every night before we go to bed, this thing is charged. But what about ourselves? Are we giving ourselves that same opportunity? The key thing, I believe so many things are connected. Sarah, you sharing the thought about breaks, about lunches, about taking that time for yourself. It's something I went on a bit of a tangent about this morning in working with a group that I work with, because that is it. As entrepreneurs, as bosses, as managers, as all those people, we're doing a major disservice to our company, most importantly to our employees, if we're not really helping the people enforce those breaks. Breaks are there for a reason. Oh my gosh, take them.
Yeah.
Critically important, because my thought, my belief, like you shared, what did you say? 1 minute to begin to change that from producing cortisol to begin repairing? If you've got a 15-minute coffee break, that's 1 minute of switch and potentially 14 minutes of beginning that recovery process. That's you plugging yourself in to that recharge. That's you giving yourself that ability to recharge. We've all heard the stories of, hustle, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day. It's only sustainable so long. Now, we talked about recognizing some of the signs, and granted, it's going to be so different for everyone, right? Everyone's going to notice things differently. I don't get migraines myself. I recognize that I don't sleep. I could go to bed at 11 o'clock, and sure enough, 2:30 in the morning, I'm up and I can't go back to sleep because this brain is going. It's just going, and it's not going in a good way. So what did I recognize I had to do? I recognized that I had to do something different, change it. The biggest thing, some sort of exercise, physical movement, and water. As simple as it is, water, water, water. Hydrate yourself. That's a big thing. Let's go back to the bucket for a second, though. Can I increase the volume of my bucket, i.e., can I build up reserve to make sure that I never have to be in this place where, oh my gosh, burnout's right around the corner? What do you think about that?
So I go back to those cakes that I mentioned. If you went to the grocery store and you filled up the trolley with everything you needed to make cake, and you had two options, it's stress cake or happy cake. It doesn't matter what's in that trolley. It can make either of the two. But you can't overfill that trolley because the body is continually using these reserves and then replenishing them. So how do you build up the reserve? Well, you make sure that you are moving. You make sure that you are feeding, nutritionally, you're getting everything you need. You're hydrating, you're sleeping properly. And it's really, everyone talks about work-life balance. And it's like, yeah, but work-life balance is those little balls on your, CEO's table that if you hit one, it kind of like flicks them all out. It's like, yeah, but work-life balance is when they're all in a row and not moving. That's balance. And that's not how life is. We're always continually just moving, even if it's just a little bit. And so it's not striving for 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of life. It's about recognizing that it's not sustainable to be doing 16 hours of work 7 days a week and building in the times for you to have a different ratio.
I think you said something that's really important there, and it's not work-life balance isn't 8 hours of this, 8 hours of that, 8 hours of that. It's about, I think for me, and what I've seen is having time for the things you enjoy and having time for the different things in your life. And it might be that you still do 10 hours, 12 hours of work a week, but it might be that you're super passionate about that. So that's effortless for you, but then you've also got time for your family and you also exercise and you get your 6.5 hours sleep. So, and it's different for everybody. Like you said, it's not some set roster that this is what you got to do, many hours. This is, to get your flexibility. And it's about, I suppose, having the ability to touch on all the areas that are important to you and not feel like anything's being sacrificed for the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not having the choices or having the choices available to you to do as, to prioritize the things that are important to you. If you don't have the choices and it feels like you can't or you have to, then that's when the work-life balance starts to fade away, when you start using those sentences, oh, well, I have to do this or I can't do that. That sort of language sort of indicates to me that's a trigger for me when someone's, not prioritizing importance, or maybe they do need some, are stressed living in that because they start using that language.
Yeah. And being able to have the conversation that they're not in a good place. There is a fantastic hashtag, Are You Okay? And it's a whole movement, definitely in Australia more so than the rest of the world, but it's definitely coming over here as well. And that's, that question, are you okay, does not finish with yes. It's like, because we always get those signals that, are you sure? And it's like being able to have the conversation that says, just letting people know that you're there. It's not nagging them to give an answer or, really kind of, push until they go, oh my God, yes, I'm stressed, like, leave me alone. But it's just so that people know they can have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, so my business partner is really big on the Are You Okay? She's right into mental health, and we are big advocates of that in our business. And that this year they've changed it from just Are You Okay? To that's the opening line of a conversation sequence, not so just Are You Okay? Yeah, mate, I'm good. Are you okay? Or, what's happening, just to start the conversation to make sure that people are okay. Can they, are they stressed? Are they, what's going on? Look for those signs. So it's a really, really big movement. It's really, really important. I'd like to see it go around the world.
Yeah. And it's so simple, because it's not pushing people to label anything. We're not labeling it as stress or burnout or failure or disappointment. It's literally, are you okay? The same as you would say to the old lady in the street if she fell over, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Because you would start a conversation with her.
Yep.
We need to be having those within our families, within our social groups, but also in our offices and workplaces.
Yeah. That's something I think that can really make that massive, massive, massive difference. And I'm sure all of us have been too. I've been in that corporate environment where it was expected that you just work. You know what? We're not worried about feelings. You just work. You just get on it and you get your stuff done. If it takes you 10 hours, if it takes you 12 hours, what I recognize though is that's an absolutely destructive behavior. And so when I work with businesses, I make sure that those values, because that is a value, that is a company value, recognizing that your people, whether it's contractors, whether it's employees, yes, customers are important. I never take away from that. But what helps with the customers, what gets the business flowing is those people in your team, those people on your team. If we don't take care of them, the business will crumble. The business will absolutely fail. And that's why it's critically important. Phrases like that, are you okay? Are you really okay? Is everything all right? We've got to get really comfortable with having those conversations, being open to that, because that will change the game. It creates a brand new dynamic versus the days of old where it's cracking the whip and getting stuff done. We've got to shift from that. We've got to shift into a new mindset around productivity. Can we get even more productivity? I mean, I like to think of Google. I always bring up Google. Now, I've never been to Google, but we've all seen movies. We've seen the stuff. Like it's a radically different environment there for all the people, whether it be employees, contractors. I mean, ping pong tables and video games and this and that and cafeteria, and you can work when you want. What does it do? It sets up radical performance. These people aren't just there to play ping pong. These people are there to perform, and sometimes they simply need to get away. What are they doing? They're shifting their bodies. They're shifting from any sort of stress. Because I'll tell you, I don't care who it is, sitting there programming for 8, 10, 12 hours in a row, right? We talk about Zoom fatigue. And we talked about this right before the show. Is it really Zoom fatigue, or is it simply getting tired of staring at the computer screen? And that's exactly it. That's where we have to be prepared to just put that work on pause. I'm not saying stop. Put the work on pause, step up and take care of ourselves as employers, as entrepreneurs, business owners. It's our duty. It's our responsibility to be asking those questions. Are you okay? And implementing some of those breaks. Look, I've seen you. You've been working for 6 hours. Please go take a break. Right? It's up to us to be aware of that, because when we take care of our people, everything changes, productivity, everything will skyrocket and go through the roof. Thoughts on that?
I completely agree, but I think there's also another step that says leaders, our C-suite, our senior management have to also model that behavior. Me, as in my last corporate job, telling my team to leave at a certain hour does not work for very long if I'm always I'm at my desk when they arrive and I'm at my desk when they leave. If I never take a lunch break, telling them they have to carries no sort of gravitas to it. Yeah. But the biggest one for me, I worked for some of the world's biggest companies. These things also have an off button, and there are some countries in the world that actually make it illegal for you to contact staff after a certain hour. I believe it's France. You're not allowed to contact people after 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the evening. They are entitled to have a weekend where there is no expectation to respond. I know that I got into it when I was working overseas, because it would arrive at 7. Oh, I'll just quickly do this. And suddenly it's 3 hours later and you're still doing those emails. Your boss wasn't necessarily expecting an answer. He just wanted to finish it before he left for the day. But because of whatever culture is created, you feel you have to respond for him because he sent you an email, she sent you an email. And so it's those things, that whole culture also needs to change, that it's also good, okay, if somebody can finish it in 2 hours. They don't need to be sat at their desk for 8 if they found a way to do it in 2.
And I agree with that 100%. And that's something that I advocate in my business as well as, lunch breaks. If I notice on their time cards that they haven't had lunch breaks, then I'll have the conversation. Why aren't you taking lunch? And, we get busy, and sometimes we do ask them to work 12 hours a day. But then when they say, I want the weekend, or I want to go away, or want some time off, they pretty much get all of their leave approved all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I rarely say no to their leave because they need to. It's important that people get their time away. And look, there is times where you've got to work. There's bulk work to be done, and you need to put your head down and get stuck into it. And as a business owner, you appreciate when they do that. So then I need to then respect and appreciate their time, and they want to get away and go do stuff with their family. So that's something that I think is really important, that there is times where you do need to do the work, but you've got to be able to respect that time and give them the break. And, even if people are, really want to do the work, because most of our guys work on an hourly type, the more hours you work, the more you get paid, not on a salary system.
Yeah.
So they might, extra work, extra money. They love the money, but we put a limit on that. Like you've worked so many days in a row, you can't work anymore this week. Go and have some time off. And that does two things from a business perspective. It helps them, makes them happier, more productive. But if someone's worked 15, 16, 18, 20 days in a row, their output for the day is far less than it was on day 5 as it is on day 20. And that's a result of their body being fatigued and burnt out. So it's really important that, it has a huge impact on their performance. So from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense to make them work so much because their output is so inefficient. But also from them, what's that doing to their body if they're 30% lower than what they should be, So that's something that's really important in any business, I suppose, is make sure that we're looking after our staff. I really, really resonate with that.
And I think that's, the key is like just having that awareness. And for any business that is still billing its clients by the hour, that's that awareness of how much time people put in. And the example I always look at is lawyers, here in the UK, because they're not using fixed price contracts. They're billing the client for every hour that's spent on it. And suddenly it's like, well, yeah, but what if I could find a way to do it in 2 hours, but I could still bill the client 10 grand because that's how much the contract is worth. It's being able to look at the business from different models. Just because we've always billed per hour or whatever to the client doesn't mean that's necessarily how we need to go going forward. You hear stories about people working 80-hour weeks, and it's like, yeah, but they were contracted to do 40. So somewhere in the process, someone said their job was 40 hours a week. If they are working 80 and not getting paid for it, not like in the situation you had there, Mick, they're just continually being expected to work 80 for no extra pay, no time off when it's, or leave approved or anything, then, that's a culture that is just not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely the truth. Right. And this is where we really can truly make a difference. I love what you said about changing the model. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that we need to maintain that we need to keep doing it. The story that relates there, one of my mentors, and Mick, he's mentored you as well, Richmond Din, shares an incredible story about dentistry. Just a simple little fun story. Person goes in and big pain. They sit in the chair. All of a sudden, 3 minutes, there's a new procedure that's introduced. 3 minutes, person goes outside and it's done. But they get a bill for $1,000. It's like, but it was only 3 minutes. Well, I could spend the 3 hours on you, do it the old way with the old procedure and still charge you $1,000 and you have 3 extra hours of pain. Or we can do it quickly, simply, easily right now, relieve that pain immediately. Which one would you like? Right? And he shares this story and it stuck out with me. It really stuck out. Because when we look for opportunities to change, when we look for opportunities to innovate and do things different, we all grow. We grow as a society. We grow as a race, as a human being race. We all get to grow. Maybe we don't. And lawyers, I like that example. I really love that example because what's it all about? Billable hours. Right? I love Suits. Right? I watch that show all the time. Billable hours. right? Everything's all about those billable hours, but what if we could do it different? Now, I don't want to see any bad comments from lawyers and stuff. Don't be talking about my billable hours. But is there a more effective way to do it? Look, we've got AI coming on board. We've got all this amazing technology and everything. How much more could be done while still preserving, right? Preserving and, you know, improving the health of some of our employees. Maybe if we just switch that focus just a little bit, 1-2 degrees, into looking at what we can do even more. This is the challenge that I would put out to any business owner out there. What more can you do for your team, your staff, your herd, your crew, to help them out so that they can be even more productive? Because I'm absolutely of the belief that certain things that sometimes we think take 4 hours, Star Trek, right? Brings me back to Star Trek. What would Scotty do? Captain, I cannot get it done. And then what would he do? He'd go on and he'd do it in like half the time, right? It makes me think of that. I bet a lot of us really could do it, right? We can. Sorry for the bad accent. I apologize.
In that direction, but okay.
Literally, it happens all the time like that. We see that. How much more of that could be done? How much more can we innovate and really change the game and in turn change the health of our people? That's a challenge I'd like to issue out there.
Yeah. So set that challenge to any business. How can you change the face of your business so that your team, your talent is better looked after, happier, more productive, but you still achieve your business outcomes or you exceed them?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the $1 million question.
Yep. And it is about the outcome. I believe that with the technology that we have, with so many of the things that we have, I believe that we can make a massive difference on the ultimate outcome, still achieve that or an even greater outcome, and simply innovate the way we do things. What we've always done is not always necessarily the best way to keep doing it moving forward. That's maybe a big takeaway there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think maybe we've had an awesome chat so far. To wrap it up, let's summarize with maybe a few key or common, indicators, and then a couple of quick things that we can do to just break the pattern now to make an impact for the people right now.
Yeah. So I would challenge anyone, first of all, who is your most intimate relationship with? If it is your phone or your coffee machine, you need to start changing some things. And if you, as in you, were not part of that list, then something needs to change big time. We're talking about self-care. We're talking about setting some time aside for you, within the family, but also you individually. So if you need to go for a run, because that's how you recharge, then make sure that time is just as precious in your calendar, in your schedule, as the meeting with your boss or your client follow-up meetings, and let it become a non-negotiable. That was the biggest thing for me. My friends, family, and me were the first thing that got knocked off my schedule. I've got a report to do. Well, I won't do dinner this week. Let's do it in a couple of weeks when this project's out of the way. Well, that project was never out of the way because it became something else. The other one is, we talked about those signals that you're getting, the pain, the illness that just will not go away. The underlying factor of that is your body is not having enough time to heal. So whatever it is actually saying, I need to rest, I need to recharge. And it goes back to those real basics. It's, are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping properly? And are you actually having time when your brain is turned off? So, get away from a screen, and that includes your phone, time outside, time moving, all of these different things that just allow your body to have a completely different perspective on things for maybe half an hour. And again, put that in your schedule and make sure that it gets done. And then the final one for me is always to say, if you are starting to feel like it's just not worth it, that's when you're shifting from that chronic stress to burnout. When you're still, oh, it's really busy at the moment, but when this project's done, I'll get that vacation, and you're still upbeat about life, you are chronically stressed. Once you start shifting to, I just don't know why I bother, it's never going to be any different. You sense that even in my energy there, you sense that the first one still wants to go on. When you feel that, or when we go back to that, are you okay conversation, when you sense that somebody has given up, that's when you need to start having those conversations and making those conversations a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And
huge.
I will say this, me asking for help at the point where I decided I didn't want to end my life was one of the hardest decisions I have ever had to make, because it went against all those fears that I mentioned at the beginning. I believe, from the people that I've worked with, that it is even more difficult for men to make that decision, because you don't want, you have all those same fears, but there's also how you're seeing yourself in that. And so, if you are a coach, or, you feel that someone is making sure that one or two of the support numbers that you can offer to people. Because I didn't want to talk to family. I didn't want to talk to my friends. And in the end, I talked to somebody that was almost a stranger to me. The next option would have been to talk to a stranger. But the most important thing is to talk to somebody.
Yes.
So if your energy around life is low, that is the time to start talking. And if you notice that somebody's energy seems to be going that way, is to encourage them to have a conversation, whether it's with you, with someone they know, or if they really need it to be anonymous because those fears are still got them, in the grip of depression, stress, is actually, there are trained professionals who can have that conversation with them. It's completely anonymous, but it might just be enough to bring the energy back up.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Those are amazing tips. Now, of course, people want to know. People are going to want to know. I know they'll watch this episode and they're going to say, oh my gosh, how do I get a hold of Sarah? How do I reach out to her? How can I even work with her? What's the best way, the best mechanism for people to be able to reach out to you, to, understand if you're maybe a really great fit for them or their organization?
Yeah, so easiest way to contact me is through the website. It's yourreasontobreathe.com. You'll notice on there we have the quiz. So those 15 factors, if you're thinking, am I burning out? Maybe one or two of the things we've mentioned today have resonated with you. Maybe none of them have, but you're just curious about what is burnout? What would be those red flags? We have the quiz on yourreasontobreathe.com/quiz. I take it every couple of months just to check in on where I am and which parts of my life maybe slipped a little bit and I haven't noticed. All the social media links are on the website. You can also reach out through email on there. And yeah, let's have a conversation. If any of this struck home, or you want to know how you can help your employees or help your business to grow by maximizing mental health, will maximize profits. So, let's have a conversation and see how we can work together.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Mick, final thoughts while you're enjoying your tropical paradise.
Well, yeah, so final thoughts for me is, like you say, if you are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, had enough, you're just over it, you need to just make sure you take some time for yourself and reach out and ask, I know it's tough to ask for help, but have a chat to someone. Ask your mate to go come over and have a beer and have a whinge to him, or have just unload some of that stress for a few minutes, and then take some time for yourself. Take half an hour, schedule some time, and just make you the most important person in your day, and that'll change the game for you. So if you are feeling it, go out there, do some stuff for yourself, and fill your cup up.
Yeah. It takes a real person to be able to reach out, especially if you're curious. I mean, there's no one that I've come across that's better than Sarah, right? She's an amazing human being. She's there to help. She listens, she cares, and she can be that difference in your life, in your business. If you're starting to feel that burnout or what you think might be burnout, please don't hesitate, right? Don't hesitate. At the very least, even if you don't want to speak to her, do the quiz. Take the time, do the quiz, and just begin to understand. With that said, we are going to bring the show to an end now. We've got something exciting coming up next week as well. Angie Doss is going to be joining us. Angie is a coach who has an extensive background in network marketing, but what makes Angie really exciting is she helps businesses maximize their social media. I know that we're all going to have a ton of questions for her. If you're in our group, Insiders Elite, we welcome your questions. Likewise, if you're seeing something on here, if you've got a question for Angie, drop us a comment below, drop us the question below, send us a DM, whatever you're comfortable with, and we'll be sure that your question for Angie gets answered live on the show. With that, thank you all so very much. We'll take you out with the video.